Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online. G'day, I'm Fletch and welcome to the show. Today it's about some German opulence. I have to apologise about the terrible backdrop behind us, so let me distract you and show you some beautiful cars in this week's Classic Restos on the road. Today it's about being surrounded by Mercedes Benzes, and now it's time to meet their owner, Ben de Boar. From an early age, this gentleman has always been into cars. In fact, so much, Ben retired so he could play with the cars. His parents, Ben and his sister, moved to Australia from Holland in 1950 aboard the SS Volendam. Ben was 22 years of young when he acquired his first Mercedes Benz, a 1960 Fintail. Unfortunately, there's no photo of the car for an overlay shot, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Here today is a 1981 380 SL, a 1970 280 SE, and an incredible and sumptuous 1957 300D. Three classic Benzes you will rarely see in one location. How are you, Ben?
Very well, thanks, Fletch, very well.
That's good. It's an incredible backdrop you have here.
It's very, very nice, and we love it here. We enjoy living here. It's a most magnificent part of the world.
It's starting to concern me as to how you cope.
Very difficult, but enjoy every day.
I'm just wondering what time this morning the butler turns up to deliver the cognac and the caviar.
Yeah, unfortunately the butler happens to be me, and and I mix the caviar as well, so that's life.
All I can say, Ben, is if you ever need help with your therapy session out the back here, just let me know and I'll travel back to see you.
Most welcome to be here. We love visitors. We don't see them often. We love them.
What a glassy day too. The water is absolutely beautiful out here, Ben, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, it always is.
Yeah. Look, really, you know, whether you've got a tree change, a sea change, just to be outside and the different environments we have here in Australia, sometimes no matter how bad your day is, you can just take in a view and it all just disappears, doesn't it?
We don't have bad days. We've never had bad days.
Every
day's better than the day before. We've never had a bad day.
What a positive affirmation that is.
Never had a bad day.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, let's go through and how about we have a look at some of your Benzes, hey?
Great idea.
All right.
Great idea.
Let's go check those out, Ben. Well, here we are in garage 17 at Ben's place. You've just got a few garages, haven't you, Ben?
We have got some garages, yeah, and some nice cars in them. That's what we like to see.
First Mercedes we have here, 1981, a 380 SL, beautiful car.
380 SL, called an R107 they're called, and this particular one is still in reasonable condition. It's not perfect, but it's still in reasonable condition.
Yeah.
And we love it and we look after it.
Ben, it's a beautiful example of a 1981 Benz. As you just mentioned, it's an original car, an unrestored car, and you can't get much better than that. When you look at the car the way it is from 81, just in fantastic condition.
Yes, Fletch, this one's never been restored. It's totally original. As it came out, it's a little bit worn now, but still very, very good condition. and we don't plan to do any more with it.
Yeah.
Just keep it tidy, and that's what we do.
Well, they're only original once, aren't
That's
they?
exactly right. That's exactly right.
And still a nice car to drive?
Still a very good car to drive,
Yeah.
very smooth.
Yep.
never causes any problems, always reliable.
I've got to say, the Mercedes Benz impresses me of the early era that we're seeing with these cars. Their build quality is outstanding. These things really are up there, aren't they?
Very good, solid cars,
Yeah.
and just kept going and going and going.
Yeah.
They're good.
Ben, the ergonomics of the car, the design, steering wheel in relation to dash, seating position, how do you feel when you drive the car?
Well, this particular one, the 107 chassis, had it derived off the 116 model, and the actual front suspension, the wheel actually tilts as it turns like a grader.
Yeah.
So as it turns, so it sits on the road absolutely beautiful.
Just
and
goes
the road.
goes off camber.
Yeah. Very smooth ride. And must admit they're not a heavy sports car ride. They're like a limousine feel, but very solid on the road, and that makes them special to me.
They're kind of like another version of the gentleman's hot rod, aren't they? So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, if you want a racing car, that's certainly not that.
Yeah.
But just special and got a lot of speciality about them. They really do. The car behind me here is a 1981 model Mercedes Benz 380 SL with a 3.8 litre engine, 4-speed automatic gearbox. Fairly docile car in some ways, but extremely nice to drive, handle extremely well. Alloy V8, fairly light car, and very nice to drive, and just very super reliable. They are a very nice sport car type thing. It is just an open top car, very interesting to drive, sit on the road nicely, and just comfortable and sporty as well, without going over the top.
Okay, Ben, well, don't go anywhere, and make sure you don't go anywhere as well, because we'll be back after the break with the second Mercedes here in the collection, a beautiful 1970 280 SE Benz.
From an early age, I knew some cars were a statement of style and elegance. This is my SL63, my most prized possession. Friends say it's more like an obsession. It's my car, and I absolutely love it. I'm a motoring enthusiast, and Shannons is my insurance company.
Shannons shares your passion. Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
When it comes to cars, there are some brands that will remain with us forever, no matter what. The Holden was always Australia's own car, held high in the hearts of many. Those lines, that chrome, the stories around them, and the people that owned them. From the classic through to the final, you can still trust in genuine Holden and AC Delco parts, available through the Holden Certified Service Network. Welcome back. Mercedes-Benz number 2. Ben, a 1970 car, a 2-door car, a V8 and a 4-speed box manual.
Absolutely, Fletch. Now this is the most stylish, exotic car that you can buy. This is the best. This is my favourite car of all cars ever.
Isn't it interesting too that the TV show Classic Restos represents vehicles typically pre-1980. Now, respectfully, we had the gorgeous 1981 car on the show. We've gone back 11 years now to 1970, and you can see the changes in that 11 years. We've got a car here that weighs a lot more than the 1981 car. By comparison, it's almost like the other Benz is trim, taut and terrific by comparison, isn't it?
These are a lot heavier car. They sit nicely on the road. They still drive quite like a modern car. They are they've got a terrific character.
Yeah.
This is something special. There's just nothing like it.
I think it's pretty safe to say that most people that admire a Mercedes-Benz, this would be the most popular shape or the most popular era that people admire. I think it'd be a fairly safe bet to say that overall.
I would think so.
I am by no means a Mercedes-Benz aficionado, but a 4-speed manual car. It's a very rare Benz, this one?
Extremely rare. There's only 2 in Australia. There's this one and another one.
Yep.
And I think there was only about 6 ever manufactured by Mercedes. So
incredible.
It's extremely rare.
Yeah.
I was at the Eastern Creek show many years ago, probably about 20 years ago, and a chap walked in with a long beard, and he walked in and someone wanted to buy a 3.5 manual, midnight blue manual coupe, and I couldn't believe it. But
wow.
We couldn't do the deal. We just couldn't make the deal right.
Yeah.
But eventually I tracked the car down and I bought it.
Yeah.
Some years later, and here it is. I've owned it ever since.
We're talking about a luxury car here from Mercedes-Benz. It's the best of both worlds. We've got a V8, we've got a 4-speed car, we've got a 2-door car, we've got the luxury all encapsulated into the car as one package, and of course it's untouched, it's not restored. You've got the original wheel covers on the 14-inch rims. This is a time capsule.
Absolutely. This car's never been fully rebuilt. It's had a lot of rubber work done on it because they get old. But apart from that, it's the original car. The engine's never been apart, gearbox has never been out of the car.
Yep.
And there it is.
Yep. Having a look inside, look at the shape of that dashboard in the interior. It's making a statement, isn't it? It's almost like at different levels. It's almost like, we're all going to get in, and where's it going to take us to? You know,
the character in these cars is just unbelievable. You know, there's just I can't say any more about it. They're just
it's kind of like a
fantastic.
dashboard with a ground floor, and you can select an elevator to work your way up. Different departments, and of course the finish of these cars as well. I love the little bit of timber that they put into the cars as well. Of course the leather upholstery as well. Beautifully finished car, aren't they?
Absolutely.
I love what you've done here, because the eye you've got for quality to have one of 2 cars in Australia. Do you know where the second one is?
It's now in Melbourne. It was in Sydney. It's now in Melbourne.
Yeah, I knew that you'd know where it is.
And it was bought brand new by Alan Jones's dad, the racing car driver Alan Jones.
Wow.
Stan Jones, he bought the car brand new and brought it to Australia.
Yeah.
And this one came from the original owner. I bought it from the original owner.
Incredible.
He was a High Court judge in Australia.
Okay, give us a rundown on the engine.
The engine's a 3.5, 3.5 litre V8 with a 4-speed manual gearbox. And they're not a racing car. They're a little bit docile, but they sit nice on the road, like I said, and beautiful to drive, stunning to drive.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Isn't it interesting that in the 50s, in the late 50s, that iconic shapes of the late 50s that people remember, and then we go a decade later to the late 60s, and the same thing sort of came in again, 68, 69, 70, round in that era. Where we are here, the opulence came back again. It was almost like a decade apart.
Absolutely.
I mean, all the models in between were fantastic as well.
Yeah.
But there's just some years that just seem to stand out.
I think a lot of it is to do with, as a young person growing up, these were cars when we were boys, when we were young men and boys, and they were just something you couldn't afford those days.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. Nowadays, the young people, they like the cars that are a bit later models.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that's sort of what happens.
Yeah. Well, as a young guy yourself, Ben, looking at these Mercedes, you must have thought to yourself, you know what, I've got to get into the brake business if I'm going to afford one of these, you know.
Oh, really need it more than the brake business, but I always wanted them, and I knew that was a passion that I wanted to follow, and I did.
Yeah.
And I did.
I take my hat off to you, Ben. Well done.
I'm now sitting in front of the 1970 Mercedes Benz 3.5 Coupe, one of the nicest, stylish, classic cars you can absolutely afford to own. So if anyone likes this sort of car, this is it. It's my favourite, and I don't think there's anyone that wouldn't like this car. As Fletch mentioned before, these cars are everything. They're a luxury, they're a sports car, they're a tourer, they are a cruiser, and they look absolutely stunning sitting there, not even driving them. To drive that car is extremely good for even an old car. It drives like a modern car, it brakes like a modern car, steers like a modern car, and accelerates virtually like a modern car. So it's the best of both worlds, plenty of visibility around it, and it's just a stunning motor car to drive. These cars were built so well in their day that as a modern car, they are still equal to a modern car. It's 50 years old, and the technology those days was pretty smart. They've got a crash zone in them that if you do have a bad accident, that you don't get hurt so much. A crumble zone is that. That was the start of it in this particular models, and which was very clever for its day.
I've been a motoring enthusiast all my life. My Coupe 4 is rare and very special. A real performance car with all-wheel drive grip. I'm not a car club bloke and I don't work on it myself, but I do have a great mechanic. One day, I might even get that HQ. When it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons.
Shannons shares your passion. Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
They may not be making the classic Holden anymore, but the legacy lives on. You can still have a Holden certified service using genuine Holden and AC Delco quality parts at over 180 centres across Australia. Go to holden.com.au to find your nearest centre. Book your Holden in, maintain the pride. And of course, if you own a classic, it just has to be insured with Shannons. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat to discuss the products that might suit you best. And signing up to become a member of the Shannons Club has never been easier. For more information, visit shannons.com.au. Welcome back. Ben, are you enjoying yourself?
Absolutely, having a wonderful day, Fletch. Absolutely.
It doesn't get much better. Beautiful premises, encapsulated by the cars that you adore, and certainly ones that I admire. And we've had a little bit of a scope so far on today's show. We've had our 1981 Benz, we had our 1970 Benz, and behind us now is time for a 1957 Benz. Now, this is something out of the box. We can tell straight away we're back in the late 50s, almost towards the end of the, I guess, the legendary curves that so many manufacturers styled their cars by at that time.
Well, this is something totally different to what we had before. It is a fabulous car, but it's very heavy. It's 2.2 tonne of car. It's all steel, it's all wood, it's all leather.
Yeah.
It's fuel injected. It's a 300D, 300 little d they're called. They're called the Adder now, after the German Chancellor.
Yeah.
Very unusual car. It's a very specialist car, but nice car to drive.
Now, educate us, Ben, the wheelbase looks like an extra length wheelbase. In 57, was there a shorter Benz?
The model before this had a shorter wheelbase. This had a longer wheelbase.
Yep.
There weren't many of them made, all the same size. They went from 1957 to 1962.
Yep.
And there was very little change in them.
Well, when we think of the timber, steel, and leather,
there are lots of it.
There's only three components are in this car here, Ben. What an incredible car! It's a sort of vehicle that you could imagine. Queen Elizabeth, rest her soul, you could imagine her riding along in this car.
They were presidents, queens, princes.
Yeah.
They all had this type of car. Yeah. John F. Kennedy had one.
Isn't the dashboard something? Of course we have our timber there, but it's also showing traces of the past Art Deco era. We're into the modern era now. Art Deco was quite a while back from this period in 57, but there's still some traces of Art Deco that are in that dash.
Very much so. Very, very, very much so. It's very thick wood, and it's all wood. It's not veneered.
Yeah,
it's all timber.
It's an incredible looking car too. Getting back to that wheelbase, it must give it the ride. So you've got two components there of the luxurious ride: wheelbase and weight. The two key components to give you that ride. And again, Benz back in 57 did a remarkable job here in putting this car together. Also, when we look at the interior as well, of course, the leather seats, the bolstering and the sheer size of the seats That's just come in here and sit down. We want to go for a long drive, you know.
Massive lounge chairs. That's what they are.
Now, drivability of the car. We know that it could be looked upon as it's a tank of a Benz. How does it drive?
Drives fine. It is not like a modern car. It is very heavy. It's very heavy to park, very heavy in the steering, but drives well along the road. Once you get moving, a little bit slow off the mark. The 3 litre engine, 2-speed gearbox.
It's luxurious in its own little way. Even the back doors with its pockets and the buckles with the little chrome embellishment there around the leather strap to keep the door pockets closed. Little subtle things as well. The quality of the hood lining as well. That's in good condition too.
Absolutely, yeah. They really made them well.
And talking of wow too, it might have even been looked upon as maybe lairish for the company director or the parliamentarian of the time, but a sunroof.
Yeah, not too many had sunroofs. This particular one has.
Yeah.
But a sunroof those days was pretty much unheard of.
That's fantastic, remarkable. Back in 1957, Ben, the Germans had some great technology. Now, on this car, they've used the engine vacuum for a very unique part of how the engine operates. Tell us more on that.
Yes, Fletch. Very, very unusual. They designed the actual fuel injection was operated by vacuum rather than mechanical, and the idea was that when you went into the Alps in Germany, that you changed the mixture of the fuel and air mixture automatically. Now in 1957, that was pretty unique. It was the first time that was ever adopted, but nowadays you could imagine it's quite difficult to get that to work properly, and there's not many people around that even know about it, let alone can repair it.
Well, that's interesting too, because every time you're moving the throttle, the engine vacuum's changing, so it's changing all the time.
That's right.
So your fuel injection, that's changing all the time.
All the time, and if it's not right, it is a nightmare. They're a nightmare. Once they're right, they're pretty good for a long, long time.
I guess down to incidentals too. If you ever had a vacuum leak, that would be
another.
You
ever have a vacuum leak or a diaphragm breaks, which it does because they get old. They're rubber, a leather-coated rubber diaphragm. If that gets old and breaks, man, you're in trouble. Since as far back as I can remember, I've been a car nut. Absolutely, I've enjoyed cars. More important than anything, more important than school, more important than life, than even probably people. I hate to say this, but cars was my life. In fact, my dad had a service station years ago in Orange in the country, and sure, there wasn't as many different varieties of cars, but I could identify the sound of every different car that there was and pick it, and I'd be right. It was that. Whether it be an FJ Holden, FC, Austin Lancer, it didn't matter those days. In the 50s, I could identify from 5-6 years old of what that car was, so I was pretty keen. Friend's dad had a 300D Mercedes, and it was brand new those days, and I thought, wow, gee, when I grow up, I've got to have one of those. So well, here it is. We've got it here, and at one stage I owned 4 of them. So that was pretty unusual. I've never had that plan to do that, but it just sort of worked out that way. I went from 1957 in Mercedes to 2010 and everything in between. I've had lots of them, and I've had all sorts of stuff. 123s, 116s, SELs, the 126 series. I had a lot of those over the time. I even bought one brand new. When I sold my business, I bought a brand new one, so that was good, and that was interesting stuff. And yes, I've not only got old cars, I've got some good new ones as well, but it's the old ones that I sort of favour. Don't drive them that much, but when I do drive them, always got a smile on my face.
We need to give 3 guys some recognition. First of all, before we mention these 3 guys, the involvement you have with Mercedes Benz. I think you're a bit of a quiet achiever. I think you should let the cat out of the bag in terms of what you do for the Mercedes Benz Club.
Yes, I've been a Mercedes Club member for a long time, and done a lot for the Mercedes Benz Club. I was a president for some years, and we probably held every position in the club and did a lot with people in the club. Starting to settle down a little bit now, don't get as involved, but it's a passion you have because of the cars. and the people and the camaraderie is really good, and it all comes together well.
Yeah. Now, these three guys, now first of all, we had Paul from Alspec, and he came up with his...
Paul Knuckle, he brought his 300 Cabriolet.
And then we had Tony.
We had Tony Povey, he brought the 450 SLC, the blue one, light blue one. And
the red Benz in the garage, belonging to Simon.
Absolutely. Simon Strauss, the red 190 SL is something special. He's had that a long time, and it is just divine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think you're watching this episode, doesn't mean to say you have to own a Benz, but there's got to be a part of everybody in this episode that admits that they are an exceptionally classy car, and the ones featured today, it's been an absolute pleasure to have them on the show and to interview yourself too, Ben. So on this note, thank you, and thanks for everything here today, and showing off the cars, having us here at your premises. It's been an absolute pleasure, Ben.
Thanks, Fletch. Absolutely, and it's
You're
a pleasure
welcome.
for me as well. And thank you.
That's right. I'm glad that I helped to make your day. Thanks, mate. Take care. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Classic Restos, featuring Ben and his classic Benzes. What a fantastic guy, and I hope you really enjoyed it. Until next week, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ClassicRestosTV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.